Hello and welcome. This is Captain Aquarius, doing business again as Dan First, coming to you with another one of the videos in the series about the lunations, that is, the black moon and full moon intervals that come every 2 weeks and which are certainly worth commenting on now in the year 2016 that will soon come to an end, and the next year of 2017, both of these years being so crucial to the Aquarian transition that we are in now as we evolve out of the outmoded Piscean values of hierarchy, scarcity, secrecy, and other things that we no longer need in our evolution as a species, and we evolve instead in the direction of synarchy, abundance, and transparency. These charts all carry these themes in one way or the other, because as we have seen all the way through 2016, they have elements of secrecy, dishonesty, falsehood, hiding, concealment, blame, every other way that human beings have of avoiding truth and responsibility. And yet, in each chart, there are present elements that show us how we can join one another in passionate co-creativity to bring about, in communal terms, the kind of planet we want. This chart was cast for Cancun, Mexico, at the Black Moon interval of November 29th of 2016. Why Cancun, Mexico? Because that's where I am right now as I begin a couple of weeks of exploring the great Mayan sites in the Yucatan before I go to western Mexico and then on to the United States for the book signing tour now that my new book, Maps of Power, has just been released. The other reason, naturally, for casting this chart for Mexico is that this country is much in the news now concerning the intentions of the newly elected President Donald Trump, who intends to bring radical changes in the process by which a number of Mexicans have been able to come to the United States as legal or illegal immigrants, and who also intends, fantastically, to construct an enormous wall separating Mexico and the United States and to force the Mexicans to pay for it. Naturally, those people on the planet who are most concerned about questions about what must now unfold certainly will include the Mexicans. Let's look at this chart and see what we find here. You can tell, of course, it's the chart of the black moon. That is, the moment in the moon's cycle when she comes into exact alignment with the position of the sun during her monthly window of invisibility. That's why this is called a black moon. This is the beginning of the cycle that will culminate 2 weeks from now at the full moon, and then in another 2 weeks return to another black moon. This is the interval of time in which all possibilities are present. All energies are in potential. Everything is waiting to be intended and focused and launched and done. This is the moment of beginning rather than the moment of completion. We notice here this chart is a good description of our current conditions. There are two ways of dividing an astrology chart in two. You can cut it top and bottom or left and right. This chart, obviously, is bottom heavy. There is a lot more planetary energy located in the bottom of this house from the first house to the sixth, meaning that our main concern now is focused on the material dimension. That is, of so-called real things, which are tangible and solid at a time when naturally so many people are concerned about what is going to happen to their jobs, what's going to happen to their money, what's going to happen to their homes and their lives. So no wonder this chart is as ground-centered as it is toward the bottom. The other way we divide the chart in two is between left and right. The left side of the chart is the individual side that represents our ways of projecting our personalities and our energy into the world, of pursuing our personal intentions, telling the planet who we are. And so, clearly, So clearly then, this chart is much more individualistic than it is collective or relationship centered, with only 4 symbols on the right side of the chart and everything else over on the left. Therefore, we are in a period in which it's every man for himself, and even those who are not saying this overtly as what they believe and what they are aiming at are likely to be behaving in this manner anyway, conceiving the planet and everything on it through the narrow lens of self-interest, focusing only on what they believe is true and real for themselves, focusing only on what they intend to create and realize for their families. There is an enormous amount of stress in this chart, as there will be for another month and a half until January 20th of 2017, when the new American president is inaugurated, and we get some sense, therefore, of what is actually going to happen from this entire avalanche and flood of possibilities that are endlessly being discussed now. How can we tell that this chart is so full of tension and conflict? Look at the center vertical line, which runs from the top center of the chart at 2 degrees of Virgo down to the bottom at 2 degrees of Pisces. This is the vertical axis of the chart, which connects the spiritual dimension at the top, the material dimension at the bottom. And notice what's in alignment then with this axis of the chart. The 2 horseshoe-shaped moon's nodes. The north node, that is the uniting, attracting, strengthening, cementing force in our relationships, primarily with groups of people up there in Virgo at the top, and the south node, the upside down horseshoe, that is the stressing, splitting, dissolving force in relationships down in the 4th house of the home. Does this indicate a strong likelihood that a lot of families are going to be undergoing separations and estrangements at this time? Better believe it. The same theme we have been experiencing for months now, as Neptune is in such close contact with the South Node, is going to continue for a couple of weeks more until we get to the Christmas season. Neptune on the South Node means that a number of relationships will go painful. There will be revelations of long-held secrets, revelations of ways in which couples have concealed their truth from one another, because it remains so now, as it always has, that dishonesty is invariably the product of fear. Those who are afraid to express their truth are going to find it expressing itself without them in some way, with the predictable consequences in their relationships. The good news here is that after months and months in which relationships have been in stress, they have been foundering, they have been collapsing, you have no doubt noticed in the lives of your friends and perhaps your family that this has been going on. Perhaps it has happened in your relationship too, though naturally we intend and pray and hope that under these kinds of stressful conditions, people will be courageous and determined and methodical in finding ways that they can preserve what is of great value. The good news here, you notice if you look at these 2 symbols closely, the horseshoe of the south node at the bottom center of the chart has a little R symbol under it with a stroke through the long part of the R. This is the symbol for retrograde. The nodes always move retrograde, in contrast to the planets, which move in the opposite direction from one sign to the next. Neptune, as you will see, does not have a retrograde symbol, which means that as the south node is moving backwards, Neptune is moving forwards, and the 2 of them are slowly going to be pulling apart. So the main news here, if you are having trouble, if you are having stress with relationships, hang on until Christmas. Give somebody the truth for Christmas, as long as it is delivered in a sensitive and compassionate way that the great Tibetan poet Milarepa had in mind when he wrote, "He who always tells the truth often hurts another's heart." So let us be economical with the hard, tough, aggressive truth, but let us be as generous as we can with the medicinal truth that all of us are capable of. The other stress factor is evident over on the left side of the chart, where the sun and the moon there at 7 degrees of Sagittarius are in the 90-degree angle of disharmonious tension that is called by astrologers a square, and is said to be stressful, difficult, when it is in fact an interval of leverage. It means that there is some kind of planetary stress that is present here that encourages us to do something in a different way. Specifically here, as the moon and sun are jointly sharing the position of the rising planet at the top of the first house, we are being invited and encouraged here to be creative, to take the initiative in projecting love into the world instead of merely waiting for it, as so many people are doing now. This is what is essential at this time, which is in fact a moment of marvelous opportunity in which we see Jupiter, the number 4, up in the 11th house of the chart, the house of friends and community, forming a magnificent 120-degree angle called a trine with Mars in the 3rd house of the chart. In this case, Mars is the warrior on the attack. He or she is the one going with courage and determination after important goals, and with the warrior's desire to act in service. Mars may be violent and aggressive. He's also the one who runs into a burning building to save a child, who spends a day stacking sandbags along the bank of a river in flood in order to protect the town. This aspect of Mars is crucially important now. It means that the more we are able to act in the manner of the red Mars, the one who acts in protection and service, rather than the black Mars, the racist, the bully, who says, kill them all, let God sort it out, is perfectly positioned here to play the most positive, generous, and admirable features of his spectrum. And notice the favorable angles of relationship that apply here, with Saturn at 17 degrees of Sagittarius in the 1st house, with Uranus, the revolutionary, the bringer of change, in the 5th house of our creativity, in the sign of Aries. This powerful combination of planets in the range of 15 to 20 degrees of their respective signs, and we should also include, for that matter, Chiron the healer in the 4th house of the chart in the sign of Pisces. These may all be considered to form an alliance in some sense, even though naturally there is a certain amount of tension going on between Uranus at 20 degrees of Aries and Venus at 20 degrees of Capricorn. The practical manifestation of this is that people are going to experience a lot of flashes in the pan, a lot of selfish fantasies and desires, again, as part of the theme we were talking about before, of each one going only after what they want for themselves. Venus is in not exactly a close conjunction, but a kind of loose one with Pluto in the 2nd house, and so this tends to represent an intensity of desire, a focus solely on what we intend for ourselves, what we may manifest for ourselves, and it is therefore useful at this time to examine closely what our motives are. What do we want? How do we want it? Who do we want it for? And are we acting communally and in an evolutionary manner for the enlightenment and the alignment in beauty and love and peace for all people? Or are we only continuing to practice the same old divisions and desires that have set us against each other for so long? We are in an evolutionary period in which the year 2017 that is about to begin is going to motivate us, it's going to challenge us, it's going to inspire us, it is going to bring out the best in those who live in love, and it is going to bring out the opposite in those who live in fear. Love and fear are the opposite poles of the energy battery, whether it is present within us, whether it is present within the whole world. You can't pretend that the negative pole doesn't exist, because of course it does. It is necessary for the circuit to have it so it can work, but we need more love, more and more of it. Choose love, ladies and gentlemen.